The fourth Kelvinverse Star Trek film, which was announced prematurely early last year and is currently in development limbo, is still on the horizon. The acclaimed WandaVision director Matt Shakman was set to direct the space adventure, but those plans fell through when Shakman was tapped to direct the highly anticipated Fantastic Four film, which will serve as the superhero team's introduction into the MCU. In this video, we dive into the uncertain fate of the film and explore the exciting possibilities that lie ahead. Why do Star Trek movies cost so much? Why has Star Trek 4 still not happened? And will the new director's vision capture the essence of Star Trek? But before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button to join us on this exciting journey. Without further ado, let's get started. Collider's recently interviewed Shakman about his new Amazon Prime Video series, The Consultant, as well as his upcoming work in the Marvel Universe and the new Godzilla series. Wayne Trabb made a point of asking about Shakman's take on Star Trek during the conversation. Shakman was quick to point out that he couldn't reveal much about the fourth film's plot because what they are still working on is a version of what I've been working on for the time that I was involved. Given the hiccups that occurred when the film was first announced, hearing that Star Trek 4 is still in the works at Paramount is exciting. Wayne Trabb argued that the best way forward for the next Star Trek film would be a hard sci-fi project that could be completed on a smaller budget, echoing a previous sentiment expressed by lead actor Chris Pine, who plays the iconic Captain Kirk in the Kelvinverse films. Shortly after the film's announcement, Pine stated, "I've always thought that Star Trek should operate in a smaller zone. It's not a Marvel appeal, you know? It's like, let's make a movie for people who like this group of people, this story and Star Trek. Let's make it for them. And if people want to come to the party, that's fantastic." Okay, but why do Star Trek movies have such high production costs? Wayne Trabb and Shakman had a conversation about taking a similar approach for a Star Trek movie, considering a budget range of $30 to $50 million. They discussed the ideas of creating a hard sci-fi film specifically targeted at the dedicated fanbase. Shakman acknowledged that in today's era, depicting space travel in movies is inherently expensive. Even if the story primarily takes place in one location, the cost of showcasing the Enterprise and its voyages adds up significantly. Shakman further elaborated that despite aiming for a smaller budget, the film he would have made for Star Trek 4 would still have retained the characteristics of a large tentpole film. He attributed this to various factors, including the extensive and widely recognized cast of the franchise, which includes Chris Pine, Zoe Saldana, Zachary Quinto, Carl Urban, Simon Pegg, John Cho, and others. Shakman also commended J.J. Abrams, the director of Star Trek, for his ability to attract a broader audience to the franchise by incorporating grand-scale elements into its films. I think one of the things that J.J. Abrams has done so well is that he'll be the first to admit he didn't grow up being a giant Star Trek fan, even though he's a fan now. But he was a huge Star Wars fan, so I think in rebooting it with Chris Pine, Zoe Saldana, and Zach Quinto, he brought a little bit of Star Wars into it, which I think helped expand its audience in terms of the scope and the scale of it and the energy of it. I think that is certainly the goal, to find more and more of an audience for Star Trek. But I am, like you, a huge fan of that, and it was a real shame that I couldn't make the timing work on that. Okay with that, but it's been 7 years since the last Star Trek movie. Why hasn't it gotten out of the space dock yet? To the surprise of no one in Hollywood or Trek fandom, Paramount Pictures has officially pulled Star Trek 4 from its release schedule. No official reason has been given for the film's removal from its December 22, 2023 slot, per The Hollywood Reporter, but the writing was almost certainly on the wall when director Matt Shakman departed to take over Marvel Studios' highly anticipated Fantastic Four reboot. The news leaves the fate of the big screen version of Trek as well as its cast in limbo. Not surprising, given that the current theatrical cast didn't even seem to know the movie was moving forward until this past summer. At San Diego Comic-Con 2022, Chris Pine was promoting his upcoming film Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves when Deadline asked him about a fourth Star Trek film starring him as Captain Kirk. "I don't know," he admitted. "I haven't heard anything about it other than in the news." When asked if he'd be interested in the fourth voyage aboard the Enterprise, Pine replied, "Of course I am. If that happens, I believe we will all attend." However, another bite at the box office, the first since 2016's largely misconceived, mismarketed, but not that bad, Star Trek Beyond flopped remains elusive for the property and the parent studio, but it's not like they haven't tried. A fourth film starring the Kelvin cast was announced at the press junkets for Beyond, but since Star Trek IV doesn't appear to be happening anytime soon, here are a few reasons for the film's long, frustrating and now unresolved journey. Has Chris Hemsworth's potential return caused a delay in the production of a new Star Trek movie? When Chris Hemsworth, who was first introduced in 2009 Star Trek The Motion Picture, died in the prologue, Paramount publicists literally handed out press releases announcing that a fourth film starring Hemsworth as Captain Kirk's father again was already in development. Payne and Patrick McKay were writing the script. The writer was at the press junket for Star Trek Beyond in 2016. All of the original cast would return at the time, according to producer J.J. Abrams, with the tragic exception of Anton Yelchin as Chekhov, who tragically passed away. No director was named, and it wasn't known if Justin Lin, the director of Star Trek Beyond, would be given the job. Matt Shakman brings new vision to Star Trek. While a couple of other random Trek ideas floated to the top of the news cycle, including pitches for new films from the Wrath of Khan producer Robert Sallin, Khan director Nicholas Meyer, and Star Trek Discovery writer Kalinda Vazquez, the next big phase of Star Trek IV's torturous development process began in July 2021, when Deadline announced Matt Shakman, fresh off the success of Marvel's WandaVision series, was the new director. Will Star Trek IV ever come to fruition? Every day it appears less and less likely, but if it does happen, I would like to see it shift away from the revenge-driven, action-oriented stories of the previous 3 films and return to the ideas, philosophies and wonder of boldly going where no one has ever gone before, that have eluded the franchise for years. In a recent interview with Deadline, Chris Pine suggested that Star Trek should stop aiming for global dominance and a Marvel-like box office and instead focus on what makes the franchise work and has made it an enduring part of pop culture. I've always thought that Star Trek should operate in a smaller zone, he explained. It's not a Marvel appeal, you know? It's like, let's make a movie for people who like this group of people, this story and Star Trek. Let's make it for them, and if people want to come to the party, that's fantastic. But make it for a good price, and make it so that if it makes $500 million, it pays for itself. That's really good. Will Star Trek IV ever be released on the big screen? The journey has been fraught with uncertainty, from director changes to delays and shifts in the release schedule. Despite the challenges, the Kelvin-verse Star Trek series' ardent fanbase eagerly awaits the next installment. The desire for a film that stays true to the franchise's essence, captures the magic of exploration and moral quandaries, and honors the beloved characters is strong. While the future remains uncertain, fans' hopes and enthusiasm keep hope alive. So will Star Trek IV bravely enter theaters? Only time will tell, but the fans' devotion and love for the franchise keep the anticipation alive.